everybody, it's Vas back with another video, and today I'm going to be doing another single review, and this one is of course off of my June TBR. I'm sticking with it, and it is the second book, and it is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. And this was actually one of my top anticipated reads for this year. I've really come to like Ali Hazelwood's writing, and every once in a while I like to read something that's just a little bit different from what I'm used to, and she's slowly creeping up on that favorite authors list. Okay, so let's just get into the synopsis. So Ali Hazelwood writes stories in academia and in STEM, and this book is no difference, okay? So the story follows Rue and Eli. Now, I believe Rue is in her late 20s and Eli is in his early 30s. I believe that is their age frame. So they're all working, they're all done school, and Rue actually works for this company that she absolutely loves. She is really close friends with the CEO and who is like her boss. One of the reasons she loves working here is that she is able to work with her best friend from childhood, and she's able to do the work that she loves. Now, she is in food engineering, and she is trying to expand the life shelf of food because she grew up with food insecurity. So that is her big thing. She doesn't want other people to have to go through that. So Eli's story is that he was also a grad student at one point. There's a lot that happens about his story, but essentially what happens is that he wasn't able to complete the program, not of his own will, but he was asked to leave the program. And from there, him and his friends, who were also in the program with him, were able to start up a finance company because their one friend's father has money, and he would only help them, build a company if it had anything to do with finance. So they end up building a company of finance. As they got older, they were able to acquire more and more companies, and Klein, which is the company that Rue works for, is the main company and their main priority of acquiring. So Rue's character is a little bit different from all the other characters in the book and in other books that I have read. Now, she's just a little odd, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And the reason I say that she's odd is because she herself describes herself as that and says to others that she knows that she just cannot form those social and emotional connections that others are able to do. Now, this works for Eli. Eli actually really likes her a lot, and he just thinks she's so interesting and a mystery, and because she's so blunt and honest and she doesn't apologize for what she's saying, that he's very refreshed by her. Their nature of the relationship is that Rue does not do dating. She only does hookups, but she only does one-time hookups, okay? She does not do repeats with any of the men that she ends up doing whatever she wants to do with, okay? So they end up meeting through an app, and I believe the details of the app are that the women are the ones that reach out to the men. So she feels a little bit more safe. They meet up, and they don't end up actually hooking up on the first night because Rue's brother comes to find her. They are at odds at the moment. They have some personal issues that they need to deal with, and he ends up tracking her down, and it ends up interrupting their interaction before it even happens. And what I mean by that, I mean she's there at the bar in the hotel lobby waiting for Eli to show up. And once Eli shows up, she's already talking to her brother, and they're having this crazy interaction. So he steps in. I actually like the way it was handled because a lot of the time the aggression happens so quick that you're like, okay, you know what? Maybe we didn't need to have this. But I actually really like the way that they interacted. And he said to him, hey, is this going to be a problem? Is this going to have to get physical? Right? And Eli's a big guy. We find out later that he used to play hockey. He's no stranger to fights. So he's very capable of making good on his promises, right? I really did like that interaction because it showed that he wasn't like a hothead, and it showed that he did kind of trust that she was able to handle the situation herself and not overstep. Because at the end of the day, he did just meet her, and two, he's not meant to be this boyfriend to her. They are just meant to hook up, and that's it. Now, I will say this book does actually move at a very good pace. I will just talk about that later. Eli's story is a little bit more complicated. He's on a revenge plot. He wants to acquire Klein. We don't know why until closer to the end, but it is assumed that it is a revenge plot and that Klein, or Florence Klein, who is the CEO of the company, has screwed them over or has done something wrong to them. And that is why they are going after the company. Now, it's very he said, she said, to which we don't know who's lying. We don't know, are they actually going to acquire the company and allow the people to work there? Or are they going to acquire the company and, shut everything down and then, 300 people are out of a job? Or is it just to screw the CEO over? We don't know, right? And once we find out that Eli wants to acquire Klein, it happens right away. And they're both shocked that they're like, what is the coincidence that I'm trying to acquire the company that you work for and you actually work for this company and now you hate me? Because he actually really likes her. Like, the intentions are clear as day from the very beginning that he's obsessed with her. And he even says to himself, there's something different about this girl and I don't know why, but I really do want to be with her, even if it's just for a night, maybe we can do something more. Like, he's attracted to her and he has this pull towards her in a different way. And she kind of feels it too. She says it to herself, damn, I can't believe I don't do repeats. Even though they didn't sleep together, because they met and they had an interaction, she says it's not gonna happen. Okay, so imagine her surprise when she sees him as one of the founders of the company that wants to acquire Klein. Insane. And their interaction when he sees her is amazing, because he's like, you don't seem surprised. And she's like, well, I was in the crowd when you guys were all introduced, so I've had some time to process. It's very quick, and I actually do like the fact that they didn't keep it a secret of how they know each other, because she could have just kept it from her boss, but because her boss is her friend, she ends up telling them like, oh my God, I was with him yesterday, but we didn't do anything. So they kind of know what's going on. His friends, they walk in on their interactions and are like, whoa, 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 what is happening here? So they find out that she was the girl that he was supposed to meet that night. So now everybody knows. And I do like that. I do like that everybody knows, although it's not necessary for everyone to know. I really do like the fact that they all know and are aware that this might be a little bit of a problem, right? There's a lot of warnings going on both sides, and I think that adds to their attraction to each other. When I tell you guys that I was really excited for this read, you guys have no idea. Guys, oh my God, guys, I look ridiculous right now, but I received another package and I'm so excited for this. And we know why I'm this excited, because this is another pre-order, okay? And I can't wait to see it actually like in my physical possession, and I can't wait to reveal it to you guys. Also, please do not, just don't pay any attention to my room at the moment, because I kind of dropped everything to pick this up. It's so pretty. Oh my goodness, this is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Oh my God, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. This is literally book 2 of my June TBR. So, I'm already getting into this like right away. Oh my God, and look, it's purple, right? So it goes with my theme of June. And honestly, it's it's not that long of a book. Like, it's not even 400 pages. So I'm really excited to read this. And every once in a while, I kind of like reading like an academic, STEM related novel. So, you know what? I'm really, really excited to give this one a go. Okay, so let's get into all the things that I really did like about this book. Now, I did go back and forth on how to rate it, and I couldn't exactly give it a 5 star, and I'll explain at the very end as to why. It's really just one reasoning, but for me, it is a really big reasoning. So stay tuned to the end. Now, like I said, there are a lot of things I actually really did like about this book. And for starters, it was the characters. And when I talk about the characters, I'm not just talking about FMC and MMC, I'm talking about all the side characters as well. Now, I really did enjoy the FMC and MMC. Let's just start with Rue. Like I said before, she describes herself as a little odd, but that is literally the reason why Eli is so attracted to her. And I honestly didn't think it was that odd or weird. I just think she is sure of herself and she just doesn't have the emotional availability that others do. And I honestly think that's okay. It's completely okay that, you know, given her background and the way that she grew up, that she would be the way that she is. And how she is with Eli is so special because she automatically says that she feels like she can be herself, she feels accepted, and she feels safe with him. And I think that's so underrated, but I honestly think it is the most important thing when looking for a partner to do anything with, right? Whether it is just a friends with benefits situation like they have, or it's a long-term relationship, you're being put in a very vulnerable position that you need to have these things in common. And Eli can pick up on that. He can pick up on the fact that she is giving him a lot more than she gives other people. So he is like, I'm going to protect this. Now, Eli is a character that I actually really did like. He definitely falls first in this situation. And I do like the fact from the very beginning, he's clear and upfront about how obsessed and how much he loves her, or not loves her, but how much he is attracted to her. And of course, we get like the inner monologues, so we do know a lot more than Rue does. Also, considering the fact how Rue feels like she's not able to read people, he has to really spell things out for her. Now, even though Eli is on this revenge arc, you don't get bad vibes from him. Like, you don't get evil vibes from him. I really liked that because I kind of knew what was going to happen just out of predictability and out of very common STEM tropes. I had a feeling. And given the fact that other side characters that have done research about their finance company can kind of attest to how they're not in the business of ruining or bankrupting businesses, that they are actually trying to use them to make more money. So that kind of tells you that they are not necessarily going to just acquire it and fire everybody and ruin everybody's day, right? Because that's what she's thinking. She's thinking, I'm going to be out of a job. But you don't get those evil vibes from him, which I appreciate, okay? Now, the side characters are actually pretty awesome too. I enjoyed all of them. And I will say this, that another reason that I liked this book was that I really want to continue if there is going to be a continuation to this series. Now, Eli has a younger sister and one of his best friends. They kind of have a thing going. They don't really have a thing going, but his sister has a major crush on him and she openly flirts with him. And he has never really gotten over his ex, who he's still really close friends with. And so he just kind of stays away from women and like relationships and all that. So I hope that Miss Ali Hazelwood will actually continue and write a story about them too. If she writes a story about Maya and Hark, I will read it. I'm genuinely invested in them and I want to learn more about them, so I would read it. And I think that's really telling of an author is if they are able to write side characters that you want to learn more and want to read their story, and you feel like the universe shouldn't be over with yet. That is telling that the author is doing an amazing job with the story. Eli and Rue's relationship is really unconventional. And yes, they are doing a friends with benefits situation, but they end up actually opening up to each other a lot during it. Like they have this thing that ends up becoming a thing between the two that they give a story. Each person gives like a messed up story about themselves or their lives. And they don't end up judging each other at all or be surprised by the information. They just listen and take the story for what it is, and they just don't judge each other. And that has allowed them to really establish a trusting relationship because they know they're not getting judged by each other. And sometimes I think it is easier to admit your shortcomings and these messed up thoughts and ideas to someone you don't really know out of fear that you're going to be judged. Because they don't know you. They're not going to judge you. They're going to sit there and say, you know what, who am I to judge? I've messed up too. This is what I did. And you kind of bond over that. And that's kind of what happens with them too, is that they're able to kind of trust each other that way. And then when it's time for them to get down to, their spicy time, they just end up doing it. I like the way the story was paced. Like I said earlier, the story was paced very well. And do not be confused by what I'm going to say next. The drama happens right away. And she kind of gets into it almost immediately of them, finding out about each other. Now, do not confuse those two, like I said. The ability to have the drama happen right away as a tool to move the story further is appropriate, okay? They need to have this interaction in order for the rest of the story to continue. So I like that it happens right away. It's not like they find out randomly 5, 6, 7 chapters in. No, they find out right away. In the first 2 chapters, they've already met, had their interaction, and then find out that she works for the company and he is trying to take it over. That was appropriate timing and appropriate pacing because it pushes the rest of the narrative forward. Okay, their big interaction is like the first bomb that's dropped, but we know that the rest of the story involves them kind of giving into their attraction, and you want to see how that's going to happen. You want to see, okay, you want her to make the decision of, when am I going to allow this friends with benefits to happen? Are we going to get close to each other? His indecision about what is he going to do with the company. Is he going to continue or is he going to back out? And then obviously at the end, when she finds out the truth about everything, how are they going to reconcile? Is she going to be personally affected and professionally affected? In order for it to occur, you need to have the big bomb dropped at the beginning of them finding out about each other. And in terms of the pacing of the story, the way that they met makes sense for it, okay? It does make sense that they are gonna get into this friends with benefit relationship, and it makes sense that it happens kind of quickly because they were both already attracted to each other at the very beginning. So we know the attraction is there. Now you have this forbidden aspect to it that makes it a little bit sweeter and more tempting. And again, they kind of know each other a little bit because they keep telling each other these stories. So there's this mystery, but also this connection. And he's openly complimenting her all the time. So the attraction is there and she knows it's there. She just feels guilty about maybe giving into it because he's trying to take over her friend's company. And when they do kind of give in to each other, they both have this understanding that clearly they need to figure it out because they were meant to hook up that first night but got interrupted. They kind of feel like they have this unfinished business, and if they can just hook up that one time, since she doesn't do repeats, they can hook up that one time and be out of their systems. But we know in these books, when people say, I just need to do whatever I need to do with this person to get them out of my system, it's never going to work. It just brings them further and further into that pull. And we always know that's what's going to happen with them too. I will say this, that he does a lot of boyfriendy things to her. And she's very like, I only sleep with somebody once. We don't do repeats. I'm very stoic about it. Like, we're just supposed to get each other off and that's it. But he's like, no, spend the day, have some food, we'll keep going. The repeats are kind of messing with her head a little bit because she's not used to that. And because when they decide to do the friends with benefit and to keep going, she sees how good it can be with him. And she's starting to visualize a life with him. And even though he wants the same thing, she's like, this is not right. Like, I should not want this. We are just doing friends with benefits. I should not be attached to another person. But because she's never done repeats and because she doesn't know that, you know, the relationship, all aspects of the relationship is going to get better over time, it can just get better and better. And she's having a hard time coming to terms with that fact. Okay. And she never wanted to date anybody anyway. So the fact that after a few weeks, she's still thinking about him, it is uncharted territory for her, for real. And what I love about her best friend, Tisha, is that she said to her, okay, you're acting strange and doing things that you don't normally do. I need to ask you, do you really like him? Do you love him? Are you falling for him? The fact that you didn't tell me right away about your arrangement means something. And I'm not going to judge you. I know that you were afraid to talk to me about this because he is trying to acquire, you know, the company that we work for. But if this is the real deal, then you have to put yourself first. We, as your friends, are going to be okay with that. So I really did like that Tisha, when she found out about them and like that they hooked up or that, you know, they might want to continue hooking up, and there's a possibility that they're actually really good together, she just gives her utmost support to her. Like, she says, look, I won't say anything unless you want me to. And two, I will support you. You're acting differently. And I think it's because you and this guy could actually have something special. So I'm not going to sit here and bash it and make you feel guilty, because clearly you're feeling guilty all on your own. So I'm not going to do that to you. And I really enjoyed their friendship and the spice in this book. Okay. I've read that the spice in this book is actually her spiciest novel. And honestly, I can agree from what I've only read. I've only read a couple of her books, so I know that it is getting spicier. But again, it is the nature of their relationship. All the other books that she's had wasn't really a friends with benefit type of situation, but this one is. So clearly there's gonna be more of that. And I really did enjoy the way it was written. I liked the pacing of it. Like I said, the pacing of the story worked. They didn't have very many interactions in terms of that. Like, they obviously did, but it was appropriate. It was, I think, very well written. And I think the trust that they give each other is outmatched and really does help them in this situation. Now, I was really refreshing that it was not overdone. I think it gave the right amount of spice at the moment without overdoing it and without overcomplicating situations. Sometimes simple is better, and I enjoyed the simplicity of the writing and of these scenes and just the way Ali Hazelwood's vision was for their characters. I enjoyed it. So one of the final things that I'm going to talk about is how much I actually liked the story, regardless of some of the predictability that is involved. Now, I haven't read very many academic or STEM books. Now, there are a few tropes that I've seen from movie and TV, and from the little that I have read, that people's work getting stolen is a common trope and theme, and it's predictable. What am I going to say? Even women just not being respected in the field is also another one. So these are the type of tropes that I kind of expect to read in these books. Now, it's not necessarily true that it will be in these novels, but I expect it. Therefore, when I hear that this is a revenge story, my mind automatically went there. Now, that's not a bad thing, and I do like the predictability of it. When I was reading it, there was a storyline where I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what's gonna happen, but I didn't want it to be true. It did end up being true at the end, which is fine, but I was really invested in wanting to hear the explanation as to how that happened and why the person did what they did. I didn't get evil vibes from any of the characters, okay? And I think that's the hardest part, is when you are pushed in a corner and it's you versus them. You're going to make decisions that you wouldn't normally make, and you would stab people in the back that you wouldn't normally do. And you end up really conflicted on whose side. Now, obviously, I'm not conflicted about if the person did something wrong. They did something wrong, and they are continuing to do something wrong. At that point, it becomes a character trait and not just a one-off. You still end up being confused because you're thinking back, this person has done so much for so many people, but they made one wrong mistake or two wrong mistakes. So you're like, how do I trust this? How do I trust myself? You know, I thought that these people were my friends and I thought they cared about me, but they're doing something that is completely disrupting my life. How do I go back from this? Right? So it's very interesting that even a predictable storyline still made me sit there and kind of think and really be invested in the outcome, regardless of how predictable it was. The final thing I'm going to talk about is why I gave it a 4-star instead of a 5-star. Now, you've heard all of the reasons why I love this book, and that contributes to my rating, of course. But what kept me from giving it 5 stars is the fact that it was not written in first perspective. Now, it was for Rue, because it is Rue's story. So anytime we have a chapter in Rue's perspective, it is completely her perspective. It's all the eyes are there. Now, what I thought was interesting is that she puts actually Eli's perspective, but doesn't write it in his POV. It is his perspective on things, but it's written in his. It's written in the third POV from his view. It's very odd to explain it that way because they're counterintuitive. You're going to be like, Vass, those are opposites. That's not what first perspective is. But it's interesting because she writes Rue's chapter. You read it, it's in her perspective. You get to a chapter and it's Eli's perspective. It's his thoughts, but it's written from an outside perspective almost. From third POV, it's he is feeling this way, da 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 da. And then when it's time for dialogue, it's just normal dialogue. I thought that was a very interesting choice by her to do it that way. Now, I don't know why she did it that way. That is what kept me from it, because once I saw the chapter switch over and it said Eli's name, you have no idea how happy I was. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna get a double POV. I've never read any of her books with a double POV, or any of these type of authors write a double POV. You have no idea how excited I was. But once I started reading, I was like, oh, it's this perspective. It's written this way. And it kind of took me out of the book a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It took me forever to be able to get into reading this style of writing. So it actually took me like 3 days to get through like the first 100 pages of the novel. But I nevertheless really did enjoy it. I would reread this again. I would recommend this to people, and I would put it as one of my top books. Okay, so I really, really, really enjoyed it. Again, I would love to give it 5 stars, but because of the way that was written, I can't do it. It was a big hinder to me while reading this book, because that's not what I'm used to. It's not something that I like. And the fact that I am picking up her books and buying them, like physically buying them and reading them, even though I know that that is the way she's writing, goes to show that she can still write an impactful and a telling story, even in that perspective, and something that I would like to read. Like, Love theoretically was written the same way, and I loved it. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of my top books. So I really do like the fact that Not in Love was still able to make me engaged and enjoy the story, even though it was written in a style that is not my style. So that is my 2 cents on Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. And if you guys stuck around to the end of this video, I really hope that you guys do pick this up, if this is your style, that it is. and enjoy the fun story that is Eli and Rue. The way that they just respect each other and, understand each other is so beautiful. Okay, I do find that Ali Hazelwood does write more relatable characters and relationships in the sense of like the timing and how they build the relationship. I do find that it runs more of a natural and organic progression instead of a lot of these other stories where it's so outlandish and they get together so quickly and they just overlook all these red flags. But here they kind of actually confront each other about it and they communicate, and I loved it. It was actually like, oh, I really did love their characters together, and the fact that I didn't get any evil vibes from anybody but could still sit there and be conflicted. That is what life is about. Okay, sometimes you're gonna have these crazy battles, and sometimes you're gonna have these smaller ones where you're conflicted about what to do. And just, I loved it. I want more. That's all I'm gonna say. So again, like I said, those are my 2 cents on Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the fun stuff, and maybe write in the community board a little bit. Let's get some conversations flowing. Okay, throw some ideas in there. Let's have some conversations and, build that community. So that is going to be the end of this video, and I will see you guys back next time.